and it feels like sometimes sort of a defeat. Like, I couldn't do it by myself. But my doctor he's really good, and he's like, it's not a defeat. Like, this is going to be a good thing for you. This is going to give you your life back, because, you know, ulcerative colitis, it can't be cured. There's no cure. Because it is something that I can't cure. It is something that I have to live with. I am choosing to not let it rule my life, and I'm choosing to do something good with it. Hi, it's Casey, and I'm here to tell you my ulcerative colitis story. I had a colonoscopy scheduled for the fall, in like November 2018. That was the annual one, and then I went home and still kind of loopy. But later on that day, I looked at the paperwork that he had given me, and there was like a picture of my colon inflamed, and it said on there, ulcerative colitis. And that was the first time like I saw it written out on a medical paperwork, and that's the moment that I felt like, for the first time, I have ulcerative colitis. I have the disease that my grandma has, that I had, hoped to never get, but I haven't. So I was pretty devastated, and I was pretty scared. Like, I didn't want to have this for my life. Like, I have big plans. How can I have this disease now? And like, what do I do? It's really hard. So that was the day of my colonoscopy. That was a Thursday. And I was extra bloated after that procedure, and the preparation had really hurt me a lot, and it caused a lot more bleeding that time. And so, I felt sort of weird that night. But then the next day, I woke up and I was so sick. I was like super nauseous, not puking, but nauseous, no appetite. I had like really bloody diarrhea. I had just a bunch of pain like in my abdomen, and I was like, this is not right. Like, these are some symptoms I never had. When they go in for the colonoscopy is like all the way up through your entire colon and all the way into your small intestine. So it is irritating, so it can irritate you, and I think it did. But the doctor told me that wouldn't have happened if I wasn't like already in a flare, like about to flare, which I knew that I was, because my grandma had died, and I was stressed added to it, and I had been seeing the symptoms. So that was, I woke up that morning and I was just like, oh my gosh. So that weekend was pretty hard. I just felt like complete trash. So by Monday, I had to go back to work, and the frequency of having to go to the bathroom had increased. So I was having to go to the bathroom like 6 or 7 times a day, which in the scheme of ulcerative colitis is not like a massive amount, but for me, like, that was a crazy amount, and I really didn't feel good, and I was tired and like weak and just couldn't eat anything, and I felt like I was gonna like lose weight pretty fast, which I tend to do. So I called my doctor back right away, because I was supposed to go in 2 weeks later, and I was like, something's wrong. So he got me in right away, and he wanted me to start on like medication. So he wanted me to go on melanazamine, which is like an anti-inflammatory for your colon, an oral pill, and then he wanted me to do these anti-inflammatory enemas as well, that you put in every single night. And I was just like so completely devastated. Like, I don't want to be on medication forever. And he told me, like, these pills, like, I'm gonna have to do them forever. It's a maintenance medication. And so I was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that I need to start doing this. Like, I'm like so young. I was like, why? But I felt like terrible, so I'm like, I'm doing it. So I started the medications, and it did help quite a bit. It took a while because they're not very intense medications, but I still did start to see some progress. And so I was feeling a little bit better. I also I started taking ulcerative colitis a lot more seriously. I started to do like a bunch of research on ulcerative colitis, like natural remedies you can do. I started taking a food journal to see what kind of foods bothered me and what foods were good. I changed my diet around. I stopped drinking soda. I cut my sugar way down. I started bumping up my fiber intake, taking Metamucil. I was still taking the aloe. I tried CBD oil. I was kind of like trying to do everything that I could do to help myself feel better. And actually it was like very effective. I lost a lot of weight because I wasn't eating or drinking like any crap. Which wasn't bad. My cholesterol went way down and it wasn't even bad before. There's a lot of positives, but I did take it kind of to the extreme. Like I would really, really worry about the food I was eating. Like, is this bad for me? Like, and I would like deprive myself of things, and sometimes in front of people, like that I could have had a little. I'm like, no. So it got a little bit extreme at that time because I was just trying to control the situation because it's a very uncontrollable disease. Like you aren't in control of it. Like it just happens. And so I was trying to do everything I could do in my power to manage it. So even though the medicines were working, it felt a lot better. Like my stomach was more regulated. Like I wasn't constipated anymore. I was going regularly, which felt really good. I still was seeing blood a little bit, so it took like 6 months in order for the blood to actually like go away. And then finally I was feeling pretty good. And in October of 2019, the doctor wanted to see how good I was doing. So I went in to have another one of the sigmoidoscopies where they just go quickly like into your colon, just take a quick look. So my doctor went in there and he saw like everything looked normal. Like he took a biopsy and I was in remission, and I was like super pumped. I'm like, oh my gosh, like all this stuff I was doing, it helped, and I was doing the right things, and I was like pumped. And then December of 2019, my family was going to be going on a cruise, and I was like super excited, but I was also kind of nervous, like worked up, like, oh, I got to get the house ready for the pet sitter, I got to get packed, I have never been on a cruise before, I never had a passport, so there's a lot of things to kind of work out, but still, like, really excited. So, unfortunately, the day we're about to leave for the cruise, my stomach was completely trashed, and I started to see blood again, and I was like, oh my gosh, my appetite was gone that day. And I'm like, well, maybe I'm just stressed, but it felt a lot like it had felt before, and I was like, oh my gosh, this stinks. But I still had my medications and, the enema and everything, and so I was bringing them with me on the trip, so we went on the trip. And I was okay. I definitely was flaring a little bit, but it was okay. I didn't ruin my vacation or anything like that, although I didn't drink any alcohol on a cruise, which is kind of out of the ordinary, but it was still fun anyway. So when we got back from the cruise, I was thinking I'm going to be able to manage this flare-up, no problem, like with just diet and eating, making good food choices and not like eating anything that was going to like really stress me out, stress out the digestive tract, But unfortunately, right when we got back from the cruise, me and my then husband, we got a cold thing from the cruise, like immediately the day we got back. And it was like a really severe, ended up with a sinus infection and all sorts. And then it didn't go away, and we had like 2 weeks of this cold sinus thing, and then it was like, and cough, and then it was like 2 weeks of just feeling weird, and then we turned into this gastrointestinal thing. Now keep in mind, this is right before COVID started, and we had been on a cruise down like in Puerto Rico with tons of people, so in hindsight, it's possible that maybe we had COVID. Don't know. But at any rate, whatever it was, it did not help my colitis flare, and so it did end up getting a little bit worse. So in February 2020, I ended up calling my doctor, and I had to go in for another sigmoidoscopy to see, because I had been starting to see more blood, and I was getting a lot of bloating, like really painful stomach stabbing pains where like I couldn't stand up, and I had to call out of work a couple of days, and so I'm like, this is not right. So he went in there in February, and he saw that there was some inflammation. It wasn't too high up, but it was definitely like a bit of a flare. And it's always interesting because my inflammation doesn't go super high up the colon usually, and it doesn't incorporate the entire thing, which some people do. But my doctor still was like, you have a lot of symptoms considering, and I guess a lot of his patients with less area affected tend to have more symptoms for some reason. So I was one of these people, I guess. So the doctor, he had me do 2 enemas a day at that point instead of just the one, which was like crazy because it's hard to do 2 enemas a day when you're going to work, because you gotta wake up extra early just to do these, because you gotta leave them in at least 30 minutes, otherwise there's sort of no point. So, you know, I started to do that to try to control the flare. Unfortunately, at the same time, you know, there was a lot of high stress things happening. It was right when COVID was coming, and so everybody was sort of like, what's happening? And then my marriage started to fall apart and crumble at the same time, in a very kind of shocking, dramatic way. And so, you know, the flare just got worse. So I called the doctor, and I went in for a follow-up after the sigmoidoscopy, and he was like, you know, he wanted me to try like biologic medications or like immune suppressor medications. He didn't think anything else was going to work. And I said, you know what, I'd been doing some research, and I'd really like to try like a low dose steroid. Like there's this one called bunizonide. I think I'm pronouncing that right. And so I said I'd want to give that a try before I did the other things, because a lot of people with ulcerative colitis, they do steroids, some rounds, and that can help. So he was like, all right, you know, I'm willing to let you give it a try and see how it goes. So I went on that, and it actually worked very well and very quick to clear up the symptoms, which was good because I needed to move out of my house and move up with my dad, and it helped me to really like have the strength and the ability to do what I needed to do in that season of my life. So that worked for quite a while. I went off that med in the summer of 2020, and I stayed like no symptoms. I was exercising a lot. I put weight back on. I was back up to like 120 pounds. I was feeling like amazing, really, really, really happy. And so I was doing well, and I was really hopeful now with like a lot less stress just in general in my life that I'd be able to stay in remission, because even though stress doesn't cause colitis, it definitely adds to it. So, you know, when I had several online virtual appointments with my doctors during that time, and, you know, everything was going well. It was awesome. And so I was able to, when I went back to my doctor in October, he was like, everything's going well. We'll wait for a colonoscopy till like the springtime, even though you're due, and just keep doing what you're doing. And then, you know, hopefully we'll start weaning you off the enema soon too. I'm like, yes, I don't want to do this enema. And so, you know, I'm really excited. But then, unfortunately, like in November of 2020, so a few months ago, I started to see symptoms again, and it was going along with my menstrual cycle. So in November, like, I got my period, and like the day after I got it, I was like really bad diarrhea for like 4 days, and I felt like almost like I had some kind of like a bug or something, but I recognized that like I was really nauseous. I had these weird chilly kind of tingly symptoms like in my body, and like I didn't want to eat anything at all, and then the diarrhea and pain in the abdomen. I tend to get a lot of like lower left quadrant pain down there when I'm having a flare, and I was like, all right, this isn't good. But it cleared up after my period was over, so I'm like, it's probably all right. Maybe it was just a flu or like a bug. But then the next month when my period came, the same thing happened, but it was a little bit worse, and then the blood started, and it was more and more. I had seen a little bit the month before, but I also do still have hemorrhoids, so sometimes I can get a little irritated, so I tried to just think that it was that. But the second time around, I'm like, this feels like really flary. So I had been being careful with my diet since the first one, but I definitely like really was careful now, and I was trying to keep my stress down. And at this time, I'm working from home, which was good because I was having some symptoms, or at least I was like close to the bathroom and things like that. But it was like, this is definitely something going on. So I had called my doctor, and I just let him know what was happening. And he's like, well, we were just in there, or we weren't just in there, but he's like, I want to take a look. So we went in, and he wanted to take a look like in December, and he went in there, and it looked normal in there. So I had a couple of hemorrhoids, but the colon like looked normal. So like, yeah, it's just hemorrhoids. I'm like, okay, well, I guess it's just hemorrhoids, and a lot of blood for the hemorrhoids. But I'm like, I don't know, maybe something's going on with my period. And so I started to get like a period multivitamin and try to help with my PMS, and then I was just like, well, let's go from there. So he actually wanted me to start the enema wean. So like in January, right after Christmas, I started to do every other day. And then I got my period in January, and I guess because probably I wasn't doing as much of the anti-inflammatory enema, this was like the worst one yet. So I, diarrhea, bleeding, and then I started to get like super bad like rectum pain. Like I was like, is this the hemorrhoids? Like, are they getting worse? Like I have internal hemorrhoids, so it's not like they're not usually this bad, but I was having so much pain the week of my period that I like couldn't even sit down. I was like sitting on ice packs. The urgency started to come back, where I'm having to go to the bathroom multiple times a day, and there's a lot of blood. It's kind of like not totally formed. I feel a lot of burning pain in my stomach and things like that. So I'm like, well, this isn't right. So I gave that like about, I don't know, 5 days or so. But I had got my period at the beginning of the week, and then by the end of the week, I was like, something's wrong. So I called the doctor like on a Friday, and I told him what was going on and that the bleeding was like increasing, and he was like, I want to get you in like right away for a colonoscopy. So I was due anyway, and I'm like, okay. And he's like, I want to like Monday or Tuesday. And I'm like, it's Friday. I need to do a colonoscopy on Monday. And in times of COVID, like I need to go get a COVID test like right now, because I won't get the results back and I won't be able to go to the hospital. So that was kind of stressful to get ready for, but I did that. I got in for the colonoscopy on the Monday, and he got in there, and the inflammation was really bad. So I came out. The nurse had said she doesn't even know how I tolerated the preparation the way that I did. The inflammation was so bad in there. And I knew, because I had, a couple of days before that, I started being in the bathroom like 15 times a day. I've never had like 15 times a day, and it was just like blood and mucus and just the pain, and I just felt terrible, and I couldn't eat anything. So I knew it was bad, but I wasn't really expecting it to be as bad. Luckily, I had done an easier preparation for the colonoscopy, like less intense, like laxatives and stuff, because the last time it kind of injured, like felt like it hurt me, and she was like, it's a good thing you did that, because it's really inflamed in there. And then when my doctor came out, he was like, yeah, she's like, it's really, really inflamed, so I want to get you right away on prednisone. So prednisone is a steroid. They use it for a lot of different autoimmune diseases and things like people have to calm down the inflammation. It suppresses your immune system a little bit so that it would like stop overreacting. And he put me on 60 milligrams, which is basically the highest they would put you on in an oral medication. And I'm not a big person. I'm pretty thin, so that's a lot for me. And I've never been on like a steroid that strong before. I'd just been on that one time, that low dose one. So I was kind of scared. My grandma had done it a bunch of times for hers, so she kind of helped me talk me through that process of doing that medication, but they needed to. So when I looked at the paperwork for the hospital, it said on there, severe left-sided ulcerative colitis. And that was my paperwork never said severe. Like the 2 years before it said moderate, and it only went up like, not that far up my colon. So now the entire left side of my colon is inflamed and it's severe. The doctor didn't even take a picture and put it on the paperwork because he knows me and he knows that I have a little bit of anxiety, health anxiety. And so he didn't put a picture of the inflamed part on there because he probably would know that I would freak out. But I was like, okay, well, this is where I am. So I went home. I started taking the steroid the next day. And within a couple of days, it was really helping. The urgency had gone away. The rectum pain started going away. So it was definitely improving it. And right now, I'm at 4 weeks on the prednisone. I've weaned down a little bit since starting at the 60, and so I'm at 40. And, I'm feeling pretty decent other than the terrible side effects of prednisone. Which is good. I had a follow-up with my doctor a couple of weeks ago, and, we talked in length, and I've been doing a lot of research, and I decided that I think it would be a good idea to go on like an immune suppressant type medication that would really help me stay in remission for longer periods of time, because it's been 3 years I haven't been able to stay in remission more than a couple of months. And you don't want your colon to be getting too inflamed all the time, because it, increases your risk of cancer, and it, you can have some damage to your colon and stuff that you could prevent if you're on, proper meds. And so, I made a decision to kind of pursue that now, and so currently the doctor is working on getting my insurance to approve the medications, because they are very expensive. And this has been it was a really difficult decision for me, because like I said, I don't like putting medication into my body. I like to try to do everything naturally. So, it felt like sometimes, and it feels like sometimes, sort of a defeat. Like, I couldn't do it by myself. But my doctor he's really good, and he's like, it's not a defeat. Like, this is going to be a good thing for you. This is going to give you your life back, because, ulcerative colitis, it can't be cured. There's no cure. You just have it for your life. And you have to deal with it. You have to manage it. And, so, the better you can manage it, the more life you have. It's hard. Right now, I'm commuting to work, an hour and a half, or an hour and 15 minutes one way. And with ulcerative colitis, not knowing if you're going to have to go to the bathroom, that's stressful. Working a full-time job, and wondering whether or not you're going to be able to, make it through the day, which I pretty much always do. No matter how terrible I feel, I power through. You know, I'm lucky that my symptoms aren't so bad that I'm 20 times in the bathroom a day. But, you know, there's days where I'm all day and was, you know, this past month, all day in pain, or having a panic attack in the middle of the day because of the prednisone, or, you know, so bloated that I can hardly sit in my chair, like, at a right angle. And so it's hard to deal with on the daily, and just never knowing, like, if you're feeling really good, or the next day, are you going to wake up and be in a flare? Are you going to wake up and not be able to do the thing you planned to do that was fun that day? So I have decided, you know, trying a new medication, you know, as scary as it is, there's side effects that could happen, you know, I've weighed the risks and benefits, and so it's time, and so I'm going to give it a try. So that's where I am right now, and that's the whole story from way back when in college all the way up till now. I just turned 33 yesterday, February 18th. By now, it's probably a couple of days after that now, but just turned 33, and still have ulcerative colitis, but because it is something that I can't cure, it is something I'm going to have to live with. I am choosing to not let it rule my life, and I'm choosing to do something good with it, and I'm really excited that I will be able to reach people with ulcerative colitis, with Crohn's disease, with other autoimmune things, like through this YouTube channel and through my Facebook page, and you know, be a place for them to go to get support, and a place for them to feel like normal and like they're not alone. And so I'm really excited that even though this is something I can't get rid of, and that there are days where I'm like, this is awful, like, I just want to be normal. You know, sometimes I'm mad and sometimes I'm sad, but there is a lot of value. Like, gosh, do I appreciate the good days. And so I'm just, you know, grateful that even though this diagnosis of ulcerative colitis and having this for my life, you know, a lot of people would be like, oh, I'm so sorry, like, that's awful. Like, yeah, I'd rather not have it, but, you know, it does make me appreciate what I do have. It makes me appreciate my family and my friends that support me and that love me no matter, like, what is going on. And you know, I take that support and I'm gonna put that out to others who need it too, like from me. So I just want to say to anyone that has IBD, the IBD warriors out there, you know, stay strong and live your life. And today might be a bad day, but there's going to be better days. You know, they're not all bad. And it'll be okay. So that's my ulcerative colitis story. I appreciate you guys watching. And if you like this video, please hit the like button. And if you could subscribe, that would be amazing. Your support would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.